A Master of Wine is somebody who has demonstrated or proved by way of a really, really tough examination that they have mastery in all aspects of wine. It is a very difficult, it is really the pinnacle qualification in the world of wine. The amount of knowledge that you need to evidence in order to achieve the qualification, in order to pass the exam, is huge. What I would say, though, for anyone thinking about being part of that journey is that, yes, reaching the summit, getting to the pinnacle, we call it the Everest of wine qualifications, is the goal. But the getting there is also enormously valuable, and I hope you would vouch for that. The journey, being part of the study program, being part of that network, being part of that cohort of like-minded, also wine-obsessed students, is part of the value of the whole thing.
Oh, definitely. Hi, everybody. Welcome to No Sediment Wine Podcast. And today we are with Julian Gore-Booth, Executive Director of Institute of Masters of Wine. Thank you for having us here in the Institute of Masters of Wine headquarters in London.
Thank you for coming and joining us. We're very privileged to have you here.
I will just dive in right away. If I understand correctly, you have a different background than wine. Could you please tell us about your journey in wine, how it all started and how you are here?
Well, so I think like a lot of people, especially in the UK, I used to work for Oddbins. I think there's a lot of people who can say I used to work for Oddbins, but many people's wine journey started, in retail. So for me, that was the same thing, a student job. My manager there was very, very good and was also an educator. So I got involved in that way. And then I actually, as part of a geography degree, master's degree, I wrote a paper on cooperative wine production in Alsace, which I loved, mainly because it gave me the opportunity to go to Alsace and drink Alsatian wines. But my career has been not in wine. My career has been in the United Nations and the International Red Cross. I've worked in many different parts of the world, mainly in conflict and natural disaster situations, and then moving into international development. But what that did was it gave me the opportunity to then more recently be involved in membership organizations internationally. The last one was a medical membership organization of doctors. And so as a specialist international member organization, that then gave me the opportunity to come into the Institute of Masters of Wine, which I joined in October 2022.
But for many, Masters of Wine is one of the most prestigious wine education in the world. But for those listeners and viewers who do not know or might not know about it, could you maybe introduce what is Institute and talk about its values and missions?
Yep. So the Institute is made up of its members, and the members are Masters of Wine. So at the moment there are 416 Masters of Wine. And they come from now 31 countries around the world. A Master of Wine is somebody who has demonstrated or proved by way of a really, really tough examination, really rigorous examination, that they have mastery in all aspects of wine. And I think that is why, it is a very difficult, it is really the pinnacle qualification in the world of wine. The amount of knowledge that you need to evidence in order to achieve the qualification, in order to pass the exam, is huge. As part of the exam, you'll have a theory element, which Agnes, you know all this very well. You'll have a theory element, you'll have a practical element. And then as the final stage, you will also do a research paper, which is an individual project. You would need to produce a 6,000 to 10,000 web publication or research project, and that's the final element. So it's only once you've got through 3 stages of assessment, examination, and research paper that you would then hopefully achieve the qualification and accreditation of Master of Wine, and you can then call yourself a Master of Wine, and you can use the initials MW after your name.
How does the Institute influence the global wine industry, do you think?
So I think that not only, Masters of Wine themselves are all people who are involved deeply in the wine industry and are influencers and leaders within the wine world. So they may be, they may be wine makers, they may be wine sellers, import, export, they may be in marketing and branding, they may be in viticulture, enology, whatever. They could come from any part of the wine world. They might be educators and critics. They will be at the top of their part of the wine world. So by the very nature of the Institute, it is influencing because Masters of Wine are influencers and are leaders. I would go further than that and say that also the student body is made up of wine leaders and wine influencers like yourself. That we actually, even to get onto the program is extremely difficult. You would have reached normally WSET Diploma level, which is a very, very high level qualification, very difficult to get. So you will already be hugely knowledgeable about wine just to get onto the program. In addition to that, you'll have been working for at least 3 years in the wine world. You'll have a reference from somebody who's able to vouch for your qualifications and knowledge, and you'll take an entrance exam. So all those things mean that even those who get onto the program are already an incredibly influential cohort. So those who then go on to become Masters of Wine, my gosh, it really is an extraordinary achievement.
I will actually touch a bit on that a bit later because I think you kind of touched an interesting subject. But I wanted to ask you this question because we have seen rise and fall of other educational bodies, wine educational bodies. And in your opinion, how did the Institute manage to retain that high level and that prestige over all these years, decades?
I think that, since 1953, I which was the first exam, which is exciting because we're coming up for 75 years. It's about integrity. So it's about the integrity of the exam. It's about making sure that there is, that it's very clear to people looking in on the qualification from the outside, and for the students who are involved in it, that this is a really rigorous process, and that if you are examined as part of the study program and as part of moving towards your qualification, hopefully becoming a Master of Wine, that whole process is done with huge integrity. And we protect that, fiercely as an institute. And I think that's actually a key part of the role of the institute, is to protect the integrity of the exam, protect the integrity of the qualification, and that way we are able to we're able to ensure that there's sustainability as well within the institute, because what we're seeing is that the best people in wine, a lot of the best people in wine keep wanting to do this qualification and be part of this process and hopefully become Masters of Wine themselves.
So you also touched upon the student body, and that they are all people. Actually, I've also met them, and just recently in the Porto trip. They all are very well established and already kind of with high careers in wine. Yeah. But still, there must be more opportunities that those lucky few who managed to get the MW title next to their name, not like earn. So what opportunities are more there if you manage to?
Well, I mean, we know from our own surveys that becoming a Master of Wine has very obvious impact on your career. If you become a Master of Wine, you will achieve higher level positions in the wine world. You will earn higher wages if you're a salaried person. You will have the opportunity to lead companies or initiatives connected to wine that might not be available to you if you didn't have that title. So the MW is a door opener, and I think it's one of the most respected and coveted door openers in the wine world. And if that's what the qualification does, fantastic.
Yeah, I kind of think so too. But for me, it was also like, some people say that this is one of the most difficult exams in the world, and I thought I got to try that one as well.
Yeah.
But what is the average? So of those people who apply, what is the average pass rate?
Well, that's a good question. So it's pretty low. It's about 15%.
I thought it was 17.
Yeah, I mean it's difficult to gauge exactly, because from year to year, obviously the pass rate moves around, and your cohort may be a particularly strong cohort, or it might be a less strong cohort. So it varies a bit, but round about 15%, which is, it's tough. What I would say though, for anyone thinking about being part of that journey, is that yes, reaching the summit, getting to the pinnacle, we call it the Everest of wine qualifications, is the goal. But the getting there is also enormously valuable, and I hope you would vouch for that, Agnes, that the journey, being part of the study program, being part of that network, being part of that cohort of like-minded, also wine-obsessed students, is part of the value of the whole thing.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, when I applied, I thought it's going to all be about studies and very dry in a way, but I absolutely loved the journey. I'm really happy that I actually ended up here. Yeah, I love it here.
Yeah. So the journey is valuable.
Yeah,
it's great
definitely.
to hear that it's valuable to you.
Yeah. There's so coming back to that WSET diploma that you said, and you kind of touched a bit similarly what many Masters of Wine have told me. But so despite what many Masters of Wine have told us, students, that we have 80% knowledge needed for passing the exam, I don't believe that. I feel that the difference between the level, I don't feel maybe that. The difference between level 3 WSET and the diploma was like smaller. And then the WSET diploma and then Masters of Wine, there was a significant amount. I at least felt significant jump. Maybe there's another step needed that could be filled by the Institute as well, somewhere between the diploma and the Masters of Wine.
It's a very interesting point that you make. I think that the fact that it takes people, 5 to 12, 13, 14 years to do the MW study program, that's a lot of time, that's a lot of investment, and a huge commitment. And it's indicative of the amount of learning and knowledge that you need to take on in that time, which would support your argument that there is a significant leap from diploma level to MW level, and there is. What interests me and what interests the Institute is, how do we engage with all those students who were part of the MW program but who didn't become an MW, and there are many people out there in the wine world in that position. And that's something which I'm looking at together with the leadership and membership of the Institute, is to say, okay, how do we make sure that our relationship with those people, most of whom are really valuable, really intelligent and influential people within the wine world, they have to be to get on the program in the first place.
Yeah.
So we need to maintain a relationship with those people. I'm not completely sure yet how we do that, but I'm sure that we need to do that, and we need to do that more, because at the moment we don't do it really much at all, and certainly not enough.
Yeah. I sometimes think that those people who started the MW but did not finish, I mean, some of them are the most brilliant people.
Yeah, exactly.
And they did not finish not because they don't know wine, but maybe life happened.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that must apply to a significant percentage of the overall cohort who've taken or, been part of the program since it began. So, yeah, I would love to think that the Institute will do more to engage with those people, and to make sure that they are, like you said, they are bringing that value to the Institute as a whole, because they are extremely influential themselves, and we need to maintain that link. So, yeah, I would welcome that.
Okay. For you, coming from a different industry, you must have a fresh perspective about the wine industry and the Institute as well. And with this in mind, what should be the direction or focus for the Institute and wine education in general, in your opinion?
Well, I mean, bearing in mind that you're much more of an expert than I am in this, and I think that I'm learning. So here I am a year and a half in, but what I can do is bring a different perspective on it. And I come from a world. My previous organisation was doctors, and doctors are heavily involved by necessity in continuing education, CPD, continuous professional development. So I think that some of the potential for the Institute and for wine education is, on the one hand, how do we make sure that people are able to engage in and continue to evidence their knowledge throughout their career, not just at the point that you get your diploma or you get your MW, your Master of Wine, or whatever other wine qualification you get, but that you're able to demonstrate over the course of your entire career and your entire life that your knowledge is evolving and that you're taking on new knowledge, because the wine world is evolving and growing, and you need to evolve and grow with it. So that's one thing which really interests me. Another thing that interests me hugely is education itself. So COVID gave all of us a giant kick up the ... and was a catalyst in many ways for change. Wine, rather like medicine, you have to do a lot of that education face to face, and you have to be with the glass, and you have to be with the wine, and you have to investigate what is in the glass. But you can bring hybrid approaches to education and knowledge sharing into what you do. COVID made the Institute do that for a while, and now we're enormously relieved to be going back to kind of face-to-face, the real stuff. But I think there's a hybrid complementarity that allows for us to perhaps do more. The reason that interests me is that there are barriers to education, and there are barriers to being able to access a program like Masters of Wine. One is travel, one is cost of wine, one is cost of the actual program itself. There are potentially ways to open that up and reduce, probably not get rid of completely, it would be impossible, but certainly reduce some of those barriers to enable us to open up the qualification, or the possibility of the qualification, to more people. I would also say that we have things like AI, artificial intelligence presents both a threat and an opportunity to the Institute. The threat is obvious, it's plagiarism, it's things like that, it's people using AI in the wrong way. But if the wine world, including wine education, uses AI in the right way, actually it can be a huge bonus, it can be a real plus, and it can again be a sort of complementary tool that people who want to share knowledge and who want to learn can use, and they can use it in a positive way. But as an institute, we need to be very, very aware of things like AI if they're going to be abused, because that would be potentially very damaging.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I asked this question because I think sometimes wine world, wine industry and people within it can be very set in their ways, like kind of, talking about our wine and very kind of, maybe, I don't want to say excluding others that might not be into the wine world as deeply or know as much. And so it was interesting to hear your perspective when you are coming from a different industry. So I thought it would.
I've had such fun. I think it should be fun.
Yes.
And I really think that people coming into this, and if you're going to commit to something like the MW program for as much as it takes, there's got to be fun in there, and it needs to be fun. You need to be passionate about it, and hopefully the passion brings you also the fun. What I found, and what this job has allowed me to do, which is enormously, it's a huge privilege, is that I get through my role, I get to interact with people who love wine and who know an enormous amount about it. Just as a sort of practical example, what I mean by that, I never thought that at 7:30 in the morning I would be in a room with masters of wine who are testing bottles for cork taint, but at the same time, we're able to talk about the wine, and they are doing me the honor of talking to me about the wine and saying, well, Julian, what do you think? And I go, well, I like it. And they have been kind enough to say, well, that's where we start, isn't it? That's where we start. Why do you like it? Or why do you not like it? And can you explain that? And let's just take it from there. And they've been enormously generous, and I think, forgiving to me in the way that they've enabled me and given me a little window on, some of what this is all about. And that's been great fun. So I've had fun too.
So you did not feel any pushback coming from non-wine industry in the position that you are right now?
Well, it was interesting because when I saw this job, I was like, wow, gosh, I'd love to do that job. And one of the first things I did was rang the recruitment agency, the headhunter, as they're sometimes called, and said, look, I'm not a wine expert. And so should I even bother applying? And they said, no, absolutely. The Institute is not necessarily looking for a wine expert to be the executive director of the Institute. There are lots of wine experts already in the Institute who are its members and its leaders. But that then gave me the opportunity as a wine lover to say, oh, wow, well, I can be involved in this, and maybe I can be useful. At least I hope I can.
I have one, which I think is a very sensitive topic, but I still wanted to talk about it. Because the current situation, we are having stricter alcohol laws and health lobbies, and you have worked with the doctors, so you probably know all of these things much deeper. Do you think Institute should maybe involve itself in this discussion and be maybe even mediator between World Health Organization and the wine industry altogether?
Very good question. I am speaking with the membership. So previously I've been more involved as well in lobbying and in advocacy. I think that there is a really interesting line here for the Institute to decide what to do. I don't necessarily subscribe to the idea that the Institute should become a lobbying organization. Perhaps that's not the right thing. But what I think the Institute should do, or certainly could do, is say, look, we are a collective of the most knowledgeable people in wine, and we therefore have, a right or even a duty to share that knowledge. And so I think that what we could do is say, okay, maybe we're not the lobbying organization, maybe another organization is the lobbying organization, but we can share our knowledge with organizations in wine that are perhaps more suited to be lobbyists or advocates, and make sure that they have the right knowledge to be able to do that other role. So I'm not totally sure yet, and I think the membership is needing to discuss this, whether we have a direct role in advocacy and lobbying. Maybe not, but I do think we have an indirect one through knowledge sharing and expertise. Absolutely.
Yeah, because I think wine education in general here is very, very important.
Yeah.
And well, at least what I feel, that currently many information is being miscommunicated and misunderstood maybe. So I wonder if organization that we spoke that has such a power and prestige should maybe involve itself in somehow, because wine as an alcohol is being, I don't want to say attacked, but it seems like this is a very hot topic currently in the
It is, and I've actually had a lot to do with the WHO in the past.
Okay.
So it would be, there's definitely a need to present. No, it's not just sort of saying present counter arguments. What you need to present is the facts, and make sure that people understand what wine really is, and that they understand the whole context of wine, so that you're not looking just at alcohol, but that you're looking at culture, history, employment, viticulture, regenerative viticulture, contribution to community, all of those other elements of wine that make it wine rather than just, an alcoholic drink. So it's very important that we do that, but whether the institute does that and what the institute's role is, I'm not completely sure yet, but I do think it is about expertise and knowledge sharing. And if any group of people have the expertise to share, well, then it's Masters of Wine.
Yeah. Another very current topic is sustainability. And so how Institute is retaining, as you said, your shipping bottles or samples across different venues or addresses. So how Institute is... what Institute is doing to retain or be sustainable in this evolving world?
Well, I was in a meeting of the Sustainability Committee 2 nights ago. So first of all, it's important to know that we have a Sustainability Committee, and sitting on that committee are experts in the sustainability world as it pertains to wine. There are sort of 2 elements here. One is what is the Institute itself doing to, for example, try to lower its carbon footprint? And then what are we doing around knowledge sharing in sustainability? Again, coming back to that expertise, knowledge sharing role. So we have a strategy and objectives around reducing our carbon footprint. You can see that coming out tangibly in something like the symposium, where we've made sure that we are not using paper, where we've made sure that we're not trying not to use plastic glasses for water. So sort of tangible things, recognizing at the same time though that we are going to have a considerable footprint when we put on events like that, and we are going to have a considerable footprint when we put on education that requires people to travel and so on. So we have to recognize that we are a carbon producing entity, and we have to try and address that over time. Hybrid approaches to education is one of the ways that I think we're going to be able to address that over time, and then the other ones is just sort of practical things. The fact that we move quite a lot of wine around the world, and we need to think about how we do that. So one of the areas that we're looking at now with one of our supporters is how do we centralize educational wines in one spot within Europe, and let's say one spot within North America. We'll probably have to look at Asia as well, and make sure that we are consolidating wines in one place before we move them around in one go, rather than doing lots of sort of small batches of wine for transport. So transport's definitely an area for us as well. But I would come back to, I think, just the whole educational model. what is the perfect balance between face-to-face and online or other hybrid approaches to education, and what can we do to find that sweet spot where there's enough face-to-face and enough interaction, both with the wine and with other people, and the way that you do it, and then how can you do that in other ways, and what's the balance?
You also mentioned before that there's also a role of Masters of Wine and maybe other people involved within it to educate about sustainability. Not only
Yes.
that you as an institute try to be sustainable as much as possible, but also into the education, yes?
Absolutely. And if you look at the if you look at the exams over the past several years, you'll see more and more sustainability elements or questions coming into the exam. But it'll also be up to examinees, up to candidates to say, even if the question doesn't directly ask about sustainability, your answer should contain a sustainability element and argument within it, because that's such a core part of the wine world now. It has been for quite a long time. We as an organization that examines and seeks to evidence knowledge in that area, it's a core part of the syllabus, if you like.
The last question that I ask everyone, you mentioned several times that you're not involved very much, or that you are not coming from the wine industry altogether, but still, I think I would love to hear your answer here. So what is the one wine myth you would like to debunk?
I think that probably as an amateur wine lover, there are so many that have been debunked for me, because if you like, as somebody who doesn't know much about wine, you kind of live with those myths all the time, because that's what informs you, because those are the sort of overriding conversation. So it might be something like, for me, the things that have really been eye-opening for me. One was that in my first seminar, which was in Rust in Austria, that was the first one that I got to go to as the executive director. Loved it. I got to drink the most amazing Rieslings as part of that experience, and I had been influenced by the sort of 1970s, 1980s bottle shape of maybe not such good quality wines, and there I was drinking these amazing Rieslings. I had no idea. So I now buy Riesling. I can't afford, unfortunately, to buy some of those Rieslings, but that's now, in my wine buying, even just in the supermarket, I will now seek out Riesling. That's one thing. Another thing I think that's been really interesting for me has been I was definitely totally subscribed to this idea of if you're going to drink rosé, it has to be pale pink, and I've changed my mind about that. And then just the third one, because I like talking about things in threes, is that I have had the opportunity through this job to taste some of the most amazing sweet wines, which I never drank before. I had no idea. So that's also been a real privilege and a lot of fun.
And maybe you want to tell us what was your wine preference before, or because it kind of opens up new question. I'm sorry, I promised you it was the last.
I think that as a kind of average, just wine buyer who goes into a shop, and I'm enormously influenced by label. I'm enormously influenced by branding. I'm enormously influenced by price, because I can't afford to buy the wines that I would necessarily like to be drinking all the time. But I think what it's done is it's expanded my geography, and it's expanded my grapes. Yeah.
Well, I want to say thank you. We actually have a small gift. I have never seen you wear anything like that, but maybe sometime when you travel or in your vineyards, then No Sediment logo will be with you.
That's really kind. Thank you.
I also
wear it now.
Yeah. I also want to
change the size.
Yeah.
That's lovely. Thank you very much.
And I also want to say thank you, because last year when I was sitting the stage 1 exam, I remember you came over and say hi to everyone. And I was like, wow, that's a very sweet and very special. So thank you for caring for us that much as well. So, and thank you for coming here on your day off.
Well, thank you. I have enormous respect for anyone who's doing the MW, all of the students. I think that you're, amazing. And I wish you all great success, because all that existing MWs really want, and all that we who work here want, is for you all to do well. And we hope that you become a Master of Wine.
Hopefully. Thank you.
Okay.